Listen, guys, me and Luke wanted to come on here, just give a couple of our thoughts, real quick. A couple hours ago, maybe an hour and a half ago, Mike Tomlin stepped down as the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was actually in the building last night for the last Tomlin game. So in a single football calendar season, I was there for the downfall and firing of James Franklin and the downfall and removal of office from Mike Tomlin. Both shambles environments to be in. One, Penn State, I was excited to be there as a Pitt fan. The other one, it was sad to see the end of the era just end so miserably like it did last night. But just my quick thoughts on it. It's been a good run for Mike Tomlin. It's been 19 years. I do not know a Pittsburgh Steelers organization as a guy living in Pittsburgh. I don't remember the Bill Cowher era. I don't remember the 2005 championship. I was 2 years old. All I remember, my earliest Steeler memories are the 2008 Santonio Holmes year, the 2011 when Aaron Rodgers ripped our hearts out in the Super Bowl, and then the Killer Bees era, right into this kind of disappointing Big Ben, Kenny Pickett, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers ending. I think a lot of Steeler fans are quick to judge and rush to blame Aaron Rodgers because he can't move. But we've known this. He's 42 years old. This is not a guy that moves very well, and he's never gonna move very well for the rest of his career. He's probably done after this, maybe not. But I think he did well enough to win football games this year for us. And they won nine. And against the Ravens, he was the reason we won that game late in the game. From just watching a lot of Steelers this year, it's just a lot of 3rd and 12, a lot of 3rd and 10, a lot of 3rd and 9. And whenever you got a guy that can't improvise that much, defenses can pin their ears back. Our offensive line is average at best. Our receiving core is below average. We don't get open all that often. And when we do, we have spotty, yesterday DK had a couple of big drops. And, that's kind of been the story of the Pittsburgh Steelers the past of the entire last 8 years, the end of Ben to Kenny Pickett to Russell Wilson to Aaron Rodgers now. And it's a lot of 3rd and 12. We haven't been able to run the ball effectively ever since Marquise Pouncey kind of fell off a little bit and wasn't his all-pro self. And that was a while ago. We lost to the Browns in 2021 and to Baker Mayfield. Like that seems like yesterday. It wasn't yesterday. It's been a while. We haven't won a playoff game in 10 years. So I think this was probably time. This is probably the right move for both parties. Mike Tomlin deserves another shot, maybe at a different location. What he's not good at is offensive line development, coaching tree development, and then particularly hiring offensive coordinators. That's been since Bruce Arians left the Steelers. We have had a rotating door. Todd Haley, the guy from Pitt. I'm forgetting his name right now. Then you have Arthur Smith. So it's just been a rotating door. And Mike Tomlin doesn't really have a coaching tree, right? There's no coaching tree for him. Terrell Austin's defensive coordinator. You wonder if, we had Brian Flores as a linebacker coach. Like it would have been a really nice move if we could have got Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator as opposed to an in-house hire with Terrell Austin. But, that's just making it, hindsight is 2020. But we haven't been able to figure out the offense. And a lot of people are going to be quick to judge Aaron Rodgers. I don't think it was Aaron Rodgers' fault all year. I thought this was the best quarterback play we've seen since when Ben was good, maybe 2018, 2019. I just think it's a lot of 3rd and 12, and you're not going to be good as a football team in 3rd and 12. Our offensive line's really struggled. I've watched the end of two eras. I was on boots on the ground when James Franklin lost to Northwestern. That was his last game. I was boots on the ground when the Houston Texans ripped our hearts out. But, we're not that good of a football team. We haven't been that good of a football team. In Steeler Nation, we were rocking early in the game, and, people love their football here, but, it's just not going well right now. But where I think we should go is Kevin Stefanski, a play calling head coach. And I think we should give him a timeline. I would trade all of our assets. I would try to be bad. I would hire Kevin Stefanski with the goal of being really bad, which means TJ Watt would be gone, which means DK Metcalf would be gone. We're trying because the best way to rebuild a franchise is through a first round quarterback, and not the 20th pick with Kenny Pickett, like a top 5 pick, like you see with the Patriots. Be bad. We've never let ourselves be bad, and Mike Tomlin shouldn't have to go through that. Nor is he really the coach that you would want to develop a young quarterback. So I hope it's Stefanski, maybe a Cliff Kingsbury, but quarterback. play calling head coach is invaluable. And you see right now with the Eagles, Duska, is we'll move on to them later. Like it's he your coach, like say for instance Steichen. We were talking about this the other day. Like Sirianni,
The one that got away.
exactly. Sirianni is a guy that he needs really good coordinators because he doesn't call the plays. And so when you have good play callers like Steichen, you get Super Bowl caliber runs. And when you don't have that, then you get what we got now with Patullo. And so, like if I was the Eagles, like I would think about hiring a play calling head coach as well. Like even if it might be an overreaction, but it's kind of how it is in today's NFL. Like you got to be a really good CEO and somebody like, for instance, Jim Harbaugh. Uh, he's the guy. He's at not John, Jim. He's doesn't need his whoever his offensive coordinator is, the identity is they're going to run the football. They're going to be a physical football team. So he's the type of CEO head coach. Same as Vrabel. Like Vrabel had a Arthur Smith was really good under him for the Titans. Obviously, he kind of got really lucky with um what's the guy in New England offensive coordinator?
Daniel.
Yeah, McDaniel. Like McDaniel's been there forever, and he's a good offensive coordinator. But you know, Tomlin's just not an offensive guy, and it shows.
Yeah, I have a few things. First, the it's funny. There's 4, 5 huge football teams in Pennsylvania. I'd say actually, okay, there's 3 huge football teams in Pennsylvania. There's another few Division 1 teams. Of all of those teams, the team that met expectations the most out of Penn State, Eagles, Steelers, Temple, Villanova, I'd say every team, with the exception of Villanova, had disappointing seasons besides Temple. I think they were the team in Pennsylvania that lived up to expectations the most. Everyone else fell below, ended up firing their coach, or had a brutal exit in the postseason. And it's been a rough year for Pennsylvania football as a whole, other than the fact that Roman Catholic won the state championship. But
Huge.
as a whole, the really big football teams in Pennsylvania, all 3 of them had lackluster years where the bottom fell out and you're either looking for a new coach or have to take a serious step back and evaluate the operation of what your Super Bowl winning coach is doing right now. So I thought that was just rolling through my head as you were talking about Mike Tomlin. It's been an overall disappointing year for Pennsylvania football.
Yeah.
The
And it's
other thing,
you go.
okay. The other I mean we can circle back, but another thought I had initially was at some point a head coach can be at a place long enough, and yes, there's a standard of success, and that's always going to be pretty close to where the team ends up every year, whether it's above that threshold or right below. They're going to be right around that standard that's been set by a coach that's been there for a long time, and many would consider elite or towards the top echelon of coaches in the NFL. And I think Mike Tomlin is certainly one of them. The bottom never fell out of the Steelers, never had a losing season. There's something to be said for that for sure. And I think he's been there. That was his 19th season. I think Andy Reid is a perfect example where this is a coach that's capable of winning multiple Super Bowls and has proven that he can successfully develop teams and focus on one side of the ball and have elite units on that side of the ball. For him, it's offense. For Mike Tomlin, it's defense. But they both proven to be elite schematically at some point in their career and have had a lot of sustained success as NFL head coaches. But for as much success as Andy Reid had with the Eagles and for how unprecedented that was in the history of the Eagles, it still got to a point where it soured and results stagnated. And I'm sure to a degree for Andy Reid, it probably felt like he needed a change as well. And I'm sure he was very comfortable with the Eagles. They had a lot of success. They made 5 NFC championship games while he was there, 1 Super Bowl. They ended up losing, but they had some elite teams there. And I think the same can be said at this point for Mike Tomlin. He's been in with the Steelers for so long, and at some point, both parties are bad for each other. And the Steelers aren't getting the best out of Mike Tomlin, and Mike Tomlin's not getting the best out of the Steelers because you've reached a level of not complacency, because I don't think any NFL head coach would reach that level if they're complacent, but you reach a level where there's not really any stones left to turn over, and you have to go in a different direction and take a
Yeah.
different approach because the results just aren't there anymore. And I
And
think the Steelers ultimately got to that point with Mike Tomlin, and I think he could go to another place and have sustained success. I think like the Eagles did after the Andy Reid era and after Chip Kelly was the head coach, they won a Super Bowl. It can be good for both parties, and I think the Steelers have reached that point with Mike Tomlin, and it's probably best for both parties to separate.
yeah, one thing you said about, well, there's a couple things there that I want to talk about. One, he's really not an elite scheme guy like Andy Reid is. Andy Reid has a coaching tree of guys that have like gone on to do things in the league. Same as the McVays and the Shanahan. Like you see Zach Taylor or Liam Cohen, Dave Canales, like all these guys like tie back into each other. Like LaFleur was part of the tree of I think of either Shanahan or McVay. You don't really have that with Mike Tomlin. What he's really good at is he's an elite motivator. He's like the best version of a high school football coach, like the very best state championship winning football coach there is. Elite motivator, knows ball, like can get a group, can galvanize a group of guys in moving in one direction, which is really hard to do. And most football coaches cannot do that at the level he can. Um, so because of that, because he's so good at galvanizing these units that aren't very good, it's not like our personnel for the Steelers is very good. It doesn't give us a chance to be bad. And in the NFL, sometimes the best thing for you is to be bad. We could really use, like, think about what the Patriots did. They just did it the exact right way. Brady leaves, they're sputtering, them and Belichick divorce. Then they hire a guy who Gerard Mayo, who's probably a little underqualified for the job, and they're bad that year. They're really, really bad. Well, actually, the year before they were bad with Belichick. So they get that third overall pick. They draft Drake May. In the coaching cycle, they don't see anybody they love. So they keep Gerard Mayo. Josh McDaniels is still there. Then they fire Mayo, bring in Vrabel, and now they're back. They're a 2 seed. They're perennially going to be good for the next couple of years. I mean, they're back. It's uncanny and it's annoying that the Patriots are like this because they got to deal with all that success, and it's just that's how what good organizations are run. And while I don't think the Steelers are still a good organization, when Kevin Colbert, the GM, stepped down and they internally hired Omar Khan, I'm always skeptical of the internal hire. It's like when somebody leaves an organization, like when Ben Johnson leaves the Lions and they internally hire the guy that worked with Ben Johnson. Just because you worked with Boy Wonder doesn't mean you have the same level of genius. You're seeing the same thing with the Eagles have done this twice, where they have really good coordinators. They leave, they hire internally of guys who are close to the coordinators, but they're not those guys. They don't have the brain. So when Omar Khan, he's been hired and we're average at drafting. We draft a couple of good defensive players. I like Harmon. I like Herbig. I like, Benton is decent. JPJ's been decent.
Sawyer,
Yeah, Sawyer. Like,
Sawyer.
dude, we've got some good defensive pieces, but offensively, like, our tackle went to Montana. Our guard went to South Dakota State, like, which is fine, but we are really struggling to put together an offensive line for the past 8 years, and we're not good enough to get a quarterback in the draft. We're not bad enough to get a quarterback in the draft. So when this is why it's good for the Steelers. Like, let's be bad. Let's really be bad. Let's do it which sucks because like we've wasted the past 7 years. We could have just been bad.
No, I agree. And I think, I mean, that's gonna be the reality this year. Your quarterback situation is once again confusing. Aaron Rodgers is probably gonna retire, and I don't think they would have brought him back anyway. But I think the structure of the Steelers gives me faith that they're going to be okay. They're not the type of organization that has historically ever been bad in the NFL. And I think that's part of the reason that Tomlin lasted so long and they hung on for so long. I think that structure kept the bottom from falling out too. I think the way the Steelers operate, however it is, even if the talent acquisition hasn't been as good as it's been in the past, and they haven't had good quarterback play since Big Ben left. And even in Big Ben's last few years, it was a little different than his prime. They haven't had good quarterback play there in a long time. I think,
Can't run the ball for a while.
100%. I think Mike Tomlin is to blame for that, but he's also to blame for them never having a losing season. And I
Yep.
think that Steeler structure and him being immersed in that structure and all the alignment that they were able to cultivate in that building, I think that contributed to them being this successful.
And
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 you say successful because they haven't won a playoff game and they're 0-7 in their last playoff game in their last seven playoff games, but it's I mean that's significant, and I think they're the type of team that is going to bring in a smart coach. They're not going to take uh unnecessary risk on a coach that is unproven. They're going to find the right guy for this system. I don't think it's realistic for a guy like John Harbaugh to go to the Steelers just because it's in division and whatnot. And they're but I think they're gonna find their guy. Kevin Stefanski's a great option. I think he's just been in terrible situations with the Browns, and again, they just haven't had good quarterback play, and that's made it tough on them. And personally, I hope he doesn't get hired in this cycle because I want him to be the OC for the Eagles. But I think he would be perfect and have a terrible season. The quarterback draft class in 2027 is going to be unbelievable, and there's going to be a lot of options there. And if you're bad, you're going to have a top five pick and be able to scoop one of those guys up. So I
yep.
think for the first time ever, it's going to be good to be bad for Steelers fans. You're not going to go 9-8, 10-7, but ultimately that's going to be beneficial. And I think the Steelers are only going to the way the Steelers are, it's not going to be a long-term issue. They're not going to turn into the Jets overnight.
Mhm.
They have the infrastructure in place and they've done it good for so long that they're going to be able to bounce back.
Yeah, and Mike Tomlin is the reason this job's so attractive. Like he has been the alignment in the organization. There's a certain standard of excellence when you come into work every single day. Now, the only thing is when the standard when you don't have players that are capable of an excellent ceiling, they can't be it. So they can be putting all of the right inputs in, like can be going to practice, like watching film the right way, and everybody can be doing the organization can be ultimately so aligned and doing the right stuff. But when you just don't have the talent, you know what they say about coaches, Duska. What makes great coaches?
Great players.
Great players. And if you don't have the great players, you're not going to have great teams. So Mike is the reason this team is so good. And just someone as like a Steeler fan, and I'd like to say thank you to him because he's been influential to the entire city. He's been influential in my life. His whole mantra of like don't seek comfort is just a wonderful mantra. And he talks about like, it doesn't matter like what your size, what your speed is. It's not what is it like? It's not what you're willing it's not how good you can be, it's what you're willing to do. It doesn't matter what the tools you have in your toolbox. If you're not willing to sacrifice and forth the right effort to go achieve those goals, like it just won't happen for you. And it's the same type of coaching isms that you see from these great coaches. Like you've got like Tomlin, Saban, you're seeing Signetti get on the podium and say similar stuff, Lanning, like Kirby, like all of these coaches, you've seen John Harbaugh and Jim Harbaugh say these for years. Like all of these coach isms are super like transferable into the real world and into not just football. So I want to thank Mike Tomlin, and it's been an awesome run, and it's probably just time for both parties to move on. And I think he'll get a job in TV or he'll get a job at whatever organization that wants to get a job, and he's going to correct a lot of ships. Maybe not the Jets, if that's something that comes open one day, but every other organization, I would bet my money that he would turn them into like a 9-10 win organization.